because apparently even when I do just start these up, it
Shane
alerts.
shows up.
Yeah, it alerts Twitter and people show up. So I'm gonna just get the
Jason,
chat
what
open.
did
Making lasagna. Okay.
Oh.
That's okay.
Jason, what did you think of the video of the different types of first sergeants on PT?
That is, I haven't watched that one because I thought you were going to ask about the different enlisted men drinking, but no, I haven't watched the one about first sergeants PT. But if it's anything like my first sergeant, then he's trying to kill us.
He's in there.
Yeah. They need to do one for Sergeant Majors because my Sergeant Major was insane. His nickname was Sergeant Major Lightning Bolts because he had bolts tattooed on his calves.
Nice. So hello to YouTube land. We're about to start recording an episode of Nutty Bites and Talk Nerdy to Me. I'm totally stealing Jason's format. Meet our meat, and we're going to be talking about lasagna. I'm going to hit record in just a minute. So unlike a normal Talk Nerdy to Me podcast, we're going to try to refrain from swearing. This way I don't have to do a lot of editing like I did last time.
You know what else is funny for a Nutty Bites recording?
Yeah.
Natural light.
I know. What is this?
There is some type of glowing orb in the sky that is filling this room with natural light, which means we don't need this.
No, we still do because now you look all shadowy and weird.
Fine.
No, turn it back on. Turn it back on.
What are you trying to do to my retinas?
I look like a pumpkin. Turn it on.
You look fine.
Turn it on.
You look
Northern Reaper.
People want to see the beardy face, okay?
Well,
especially now that you're all bearded.
Now, to be fair and honest, this is the first time you all can see moi.
This is true. Double your beard, double your pleasure.
Double your drinking.
This is true.
I have been so ordered. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so before we hit record, Tech, do you want to show the world of YouTube your fancy big boy rye glass?
My fancy big boy rye glass that has my name on it. It does say Uncle Baba.
My goodness, that's a big tumbler.
It's not a tumbler, it's a rocks glass.
It is a rocks glass. It weighs 1 metric ton. It does say Uncle Baba on it, which is my name.
That's awesome.
Where did you get
by
that?
My sister and by given by my sister and her children for my birthday this year. To steal the words of Boris the Blade, weight means reliability, because if this doesn't work, I can beat someone to death with this. a heavy rye glass is definitely required.
So we're talking lasagna. Which fountain pen should I grab for my notes?
Something lasagna colored?
I don't have. I mean, I have a red.
No. What about? Okay, take out your classic Schaefer.
Ah, yes. Classic Schaefer.
Because it's layered. It's got stripes on it.
Yes.
Not only are they going to be talking about what pen they use, but I'm pretty sure they're going to discuss what ink is best suited for like the warmth and loving feeling of lasagna as well.
Sure. In this case, it's Noodler's Polar Brown because it's lubricated and goes really well in a vintage pen.
Lubricated, like the olive oil that you add to your pan before you make your lasagna. Ha-ha.
All right. Okay.
We're good.
I'm going to hit record.
Can we also note that I'm wearing a Gettysburg hoodie?
He is.
And it's gray.
No, but not because of that. No, not because of that. It just happens to be gray.
Look, it's okay, Nutty.
It's not okay.
Look, me and Tech's cooking styles are separate but equal.
Dude, no, that's not okay either. And by the way, it's bad enough he's a red coat. All right.
It's okay. His cooking is only 3/5.
Stop! No. None of that. You guys are awful, racist. No, do not infect my channel. I'm going to have people coming after me. They are the ones. Go to them.
Congratulations. We just got demonetized.
Hey. I don't monetize my videos. So
hooray!
We're all good.
Not a problem.
I'm off work tomorrow, so I'm probably going to get ripped.
Not a problem anymore. All right. So I'm going to hit record. Hello, Mixed Nutcases. This is Nuke Joss, and I've got a special crossover episode for you with the Talk Nerdy to Me podcast. And we are totally stealing Jason's format of Meet Our Meat. We're going to be talking about food today. And with me today, as always, I have...
Hi, I'm Meat. Hi, I'm Tech.
And the format that we've stolen from...
Hi, we're... You're not going to go first?
No.
Why not? You're not gonna go first. I
No,
want
you were
ladies
good.
first.
You were good. I'm Jen.
And you've probably tasted my meat. I'm Jason.
I'm not sure most of my listeners have tasted your meat, but you'd like them to.
You should go to Balticon.
Yeah, but there's no place to make meat anymore at Balticon. So today we're going to be talking about lasagna because Jason finally put out a 2-year-old episode that he recorded with Tech where they talked about meat and barbecuing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was really cool.
Baking.
We need to record more. So we're recording more.
Yeah.
And here we are. We're doing it live.
So
We're
my big thing about wanting to talk about lasagna is a while ago, Jason sent me this video of this guy making lasagna, and I almost lost my mind because he used sliced cheese in his lasagna.
He did
And
what?
you were talking about he put what was it? He put sugar with the ricotta, I think it was.
Yeah, he put sugar in the ricotta. Well, why would you do that?
Oh man.
I just no.
It's gonna be great. This is gonna be great radio because I'm looking up that song.
So, Tech, I'm bringing you on here as the lasagna eating expert
I am.
because every time Tech discovers a new Italian place, what's the first thing you
I
order?
order lasagna. It's my neutral ground. It is my baseline. If you want to call yourself an Italian restaurant, you have to understand a lasagna. It's like a spaghetti and meatballs. It's a thing. So what is a lasagna? Let me yeah, it's noodle cake. It's noodle cake. Layers of noodles separated by some type of ground meat, some type of tomato sauce, some type of cheese. And all of those ingredients can be played with. And you can play with sort of anything as long as you're making a noodle cake that you then bake. You could even take the layers of noodle out and replace it with like tube noodles and still make a thing of like ground meat, cheese, sauce, noodles. Now it's called a ziti, and it's a thing. You can remove the noodles and replace them with eggplant, transport yourself to Greece. Now you've made a thing called a moussaka, which is also really good, and I hate eggplant. I can say that moussaka is actually pretty good, but you've yet again made a cake out of carbs, protein, cheese,
and more carbs.
Ta-da! Miracle.
Yes.
And also, there's actually a dessert lasagna, even though it's not a noodle cake. It's like layers upon layers of diabetes, and it's amazing.
All right, you're gonna have to explain that one to me. So what are we putting in there? Because that just sounds like cake to me.
The noodles are replaced with Kit Kats, and the tomato sauce is marshmallows and other things. Like it's a bunch that goes into it. Like it's insane. It's walking, talking. We just killed Wilford Brimley.
Okay, well that just sounds like
I just went blind from this description because I'm imagining now that the tomato sauce is caramel.
ooh, that might be good.
We're both like, ooh, that sounds good.
I could go for that.
Caramel drizzled Kit Kats and marshmallows melted in an oven and then served to you while the surgeon lops off one of your feet and you go blind.
And the whole time you're like, it was worth it.
Totally worth it.
By the way, Nettie, the song is called Lasagna by Brandon Jamar Scott.
All right. And he makes it wrong. We have, surprise, we have Shane in the chat. Hi, Shane.
Hi, Shane.
And Shane says, Jason has a webcam. He's very excited.
I do. You can all stop complaining. I have joined the modern 2018 era thanks to Jen.
Yeah, you joined 2007. You're 10 years late.
Yeah, this is the only thing I'm getting for Christmas, so it's fine.
Excellent. It's a present for us.
Tune in next year when Jason gets a MySpace page.
So, you're gonna call this a meet our meat episode, and I'm gonna call this the special ingredient is love episode. And the reason for that is a friend of ours wanted to make his girl something special, so he's gonna make her a lasagna. But all he needed to do was borrow a lasagna pan, a cheese grater, the ingredients, and everything else from us. So when he came over and I was going through and I was telling him how to make, oh no, it was chili, but whatever, it doesn't matter. he needed all the ingredients, and I said, you know what the special secret ingredient is? And he just
Is
looks
it
at me.
love?
He says, is it love? So now any recipes I'm talking about, the secret ingredient is love. Thank you, Mike. Now, the most important thing about a lasagna to me is that number one, it's comfort food. And so it should comfort you and make you feel good. And then when you're building your lasagna, the best tip I can say is heaviest on the bottom, going to lightest on the top. Everyone agree?
Or else it's not going to work. As it sits in the pan, it's going to resettle.
Yeah, it's going to turn into lasagna soup.
So at this point, you need to have your noodles now need to be structural components to hold your elements at the layer that you want them to. You're not creating the Chrysler building here. You're making noodle cake.
Or do like I do and have multiple meats and multiple cheeses. So you're not just making noodle cake. You're making noodle cake epoxy, and it'll just sit inside you and build a greatness within you.
All right. So give us your basic lasagna layer by layer. Do you have a basic?
He's laughing because there's no such thing as basic lasagna.
No, not for me. I no, honestly, the first time I did make it, it was just a simple tomato sauce that I bought with some ground beef, noodles, cheese, so forth. And I was like, screw that. That's no fun. And then I decided, hey, Jen, how many cheeses do you think I can put into this thing? And she looked oddly, and I go, I bet I can get 5. And she's like, you're going to constipate the world. And I'm like, yes, I am. And thus I started to experiment, and I've put Gouda, I've put Asiago, I've put Munster, I've put sharp cheddar, I've put regular cheddar, I've put mozzarella, provolone, I've put in all sorts of cheeses. And I've decided that it depends on the sauce. To me, it's the sauce, right? If you have a sweeter sauce, then you can go with more bitter cheeses, provolones, parmesans, Asiago. But if you have a bitter one, then you want to go with something like a smoked Gouda, stuff like that. And then it also, once you figure out if you're going to have a bitter or a sweeter sauce, then you can start figuring out what meat you want to put in it. By the way, Bambi in lasagna, fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Well, pretty much any meat is good. And you can do these. So for the vegetarians listening, you can totally do these vegetarian style. And sometimes I mix my vegetarian with my meat. So I'm going to get in there and I'm going to tell you, Jason is 100% right. The sauce is key. You got to know what your sauce is. I do not use jar sauce at all because I make better than jar very quickly. And everybody thinks, oh man, it takes forever to make jar sauce. Jar sauce, geez. It takes forever to make good sauce. No, it doesn't. Basically, all I do is I use cans of crushed tomatoes. And then I'll use like a little can of tomato puree if I need to. A lot of times though with lasagna, I'm not going to add that puree because I want it to be very liquidy so that it infuses those noodles and really sops them up. But you got your crushed tomatoes, you add your seasonings, you add your salt, your pepper, and then if it's a little too acidic, and this came from Jason, as anybody that listened to Meet Our Meat heard, you can add in a little bit of brown sugar, and that will cut down that acidity. But yeah, so for me, one of my tricks is, meat's expensive, and I like the flavor of meat, but there's this thing that you can get at the supermarket for like $3, and it's meatless meat. It's like these little veggie crumbles. And what I'll do is I'll get a pound of meat, and then I'll take one of those little packets of the veggie crumbles and I'll cook them together. So then the veggie crumbles taste like the meat because it's got all that delicious meat fat into the vegetables, and then I can actually make my meat more a bigger layer.
So every vegan listener
is horrified.
Just vomited into their mouth, which makes me laugh.
Well, they're listening to something called lasagna.
Yes.
It's not going to be vegan.
They're listening to Meet Our Meat.
Yeah,
vegan.
By the way, the name is the best drunk dad joke ever. It's cool. But no, it's, you know what? To be honest and fair and surprising most of the vegan and vegetarian listeners, I actually want to experiment with some things because I was at work And in the produce section, we have a lot of these. We got in falafel balls, and
I love falafel.
And I've never had falafel. Like, so I wanna play with it. I'm actually gonna probably try to maybe make some like spaghetti, but use falafel.
Oh yeah.
And I'm thinking, you probably could use those in like a lasagna. Like you could either cut them in half and layer them in there with the sauce, or you could crumble them up and sprinkle that in there and use that in the sauce. So I want to play with this thing because I'm not a fan of eggplant, but I think a well done eggplant lasagna is really, really, really good.
It is absolutely. It's called moussaka.
And no, but falafel, especially if you're doing that with some nice good brochet, that's gonna work really well together, and that's gonna add to that whole comfort food feel, because it'll be one of those easy to eat things, but also it like feeds your soul kind of a thing.
And I wonder, because I've made like barbecue meatballs and stuff before, and I've actually figured out how the proportions for my teriyaki sauce, which Jen enjoyed the other day with the chicken breast.
Ooh, teriyaki lasagna.
And I want to test how to make a teriyaki Philly cheesesteak. We're gonna play with that sometime.
That was mine.
Yeah, she asked me if I could do that. I'm like, oh, I'll try.
All right.
But no, like you know what? It's funny now that you mentioned it, Tech. A teriyaki lasagna might be pretty okay. Like maybe not you don't do the noodles, but you could definitely do the meat before you put them in the sauce. And you might actually be able to mix that in with the sauce a little bit if you don't caramelize the teriyaki. But anyway, that's experimental time.
See, it almost sounds too rich for me.
But if you instead of doing the flat layer of noodles, if you had layers of weaved ramen,
ooh, or maybe tofu. Actually, like because remember tofu.
Yeah.
Remember tofu's a fungus, so it doesn't have its own flavor. It just takes whatever you put it in.
So tofu is to soy what cheese is to milk. All you're doing is you're taking it when you make milk, you take cheese. When you make cheese, you take milk, you add chemistry, you make cheese. If you take soy and you add chemistry, you make tofu. So if you're going to, no, absolutely 100%. If you could add layers of tofu in there, and tofu takes on any flavor that it's added to. Tofu by itself is not horrible.
No.
Yeah,
tofu alone is horrible.
Yeah, and if you get firm enough tofu, you probably could slice it and the other sides and use that so it doesn't soften up as much in the lasagna. Also, you can make a less watery sauce and so forth.
Yeah, that's when I would add in that the tomato puree, because I'd want a thicker sauce, because I wouldn't want my tofu to be saturated and to absorb that excess water.
Also, the greatest thing about tofu is tofu delivery cars, especially if they're a 1986 Toyota Corolla GT or a Toyota Torino known as an AE86. And if it has to drift up and down mountains to make sure that the tofu gets delivered intact, that is the best thing about tofu. If you know what I'm talking about, you can talk to us in the comments, please, and I will send you my eternal love and admiration. You are a fellow car geek like me. If you don't know what I'm talking about, welcome to 98.999999995 of the population who has no idea what I mean. And yeah, too bad for you. I'm not helping you.
14 minutes into a food episode for us to get to anime, and it's not the one you think.
To talk about Initial D, and it wasn't me.
Yeah.
You know what else is great? While we're doing this, you know what else is great about lasagna? Tentacles.
Okay, I would do a seafood lasagna, but I wouldn't make it for you because you get very angry at me.
So could you? It would be expensive, but do you think you could replace the noodles with lobster?
That's a lot of lobster.
Okay, I wouldn't replace the noodles with the lobster. I would definitely use the lobster as my protein. If I'm replacing noodles with anything, that would be like a white fish, or maybe I would use seaweed or something like that.
No, what I would do is my the ground beef, and I don't eat seafood of any kind.
No, but you like to cook it,
right? So, my ground beef would also include a calamari.
Ooh. And Jen, what was that you're saying about nori?
I was like, I could totally see layers of nori in there instead of noodles.
Nori, is that the seaweed?
Yeah, that's the seaweed.
It's the seaweed that's made into actual paper sheets.
Right.
Yes. That's what you use for your ramen stock.
Right. When I no, that's kombu.
Yeah, but nori's the big ones, kombu's the little ones.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I could definitely see that. And that's the beauty of a lasagna. You have your basic structure. So my basic is I get the ground beef and I get the veggie crumbles and I cook that up. And then I've made my sauce as we've discussed. And then I take my lasagna pans. Now my lasagna pans, I do not use the disposable tin pans. I use a big Pyrex, or I use the 2 square Pyrexes because then I can freeze one and save it for later. And
real quick, also, for people out there, I know, like, growing up like me, you probably had family that made lasagna in aluminum foil, those disposable pans. Do not do that. Tomato and aluminum actually react to one another. You can actually dissolve aluminum with tomato. That's not good.
Yeah, so everybody needs to go online right now and look up aluminum pot syndrome and figure out why many years ago they stopped giving soldiers in the field aluminum cups and aluminum plates, and they went to Melmac.
Yeah. Well, and on top of that, it can also, I mean, sure, everyone's like, yeah, but I've done it a million times. Yes, you've done it a million times, but also you're changing the flavor of your tomato sauce when you're doing that.
You're also making people go insane.
Yeah, that
aluminum pot syndrome will drive you nuts.
One lasagna from an aluminum thing is not going to...
A lifetime of aluminum
A
pots.
lifetime, yes. Okay, so...
or to our British viewers, hi, Shane, aluminium.
Aluminium. So what I would love is one of those nice ceramic lasagna pans. That would be awesome. But right now I'm using the Pyrex. So anyway, the other thing is I use the oven ready noodles because there's really, to me, not much of a difference in flavor between the noodles you have to boil individually or the oven ready. The only difference is if you are making the noodles yourself or buying them pre-made. That's where the flavor difference comes in. So if you're making them yourself, you don't have to use as watery sauce. But if you are buying them, get that oven ready. Don't waste extra time.
You don't need to make. I don't think you need to make your own noodles, and I'm not going to be one of those gatekeepers that say that if you're not making your own noodles, your lasagna is going to suck. No, if you've got the time and you've got the time to experiment, to figure out what works and what you like, and then adjust your flavors and adjust the rest of your components to fit the noodles that you're making, that's cool. That's awesome. That's great. Go ahead and do that. Most of us, me, do not have the time, the will, nor the energy to go out and create an entire lasagna from scratch. But
if we're going to be making our noodles, we're not doing that on a weeknight.
Yeah, and to
made his own ramen.
True.
Right. So that took 12 hours on a Saturday and was the most complicated bowl of chicken noodle soup I've ever made. But
see the first episode.
Right. But it means that, like, if I'm not making my own noodles, that's fine. I also didn't kill my own cow for the ground beef, and I didn't curdle the milk to make my own cheese.
I also did not crush those tomatoes myself.
No, exactly.
I let No Name do it.
So who cares?
Yes.
It was the same thing when I went to my very first costume contest dressed as the Clockwork Doctor, and the judge picked up the tail of my coat and she goes, "Did you make this yourself?" I go, "No, the coat is store bought, but I added the accoutrement to it." And she goes, "Oh." And then she writes a negative note on the list. And I looked at her and I go, "Yeah, but I didn't darn my own socks either."
Yeah.
So how much trouble am I in? I mean, really, is that bad that I started with store-bought fabric?
And it's not like you were entering an SEA competition and you had created custom cuffs and custom buttons and all this other stuff.
I didn't leave the twill.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I don't have a giant loom that takes up a room in my house and a flock of sheep in the backyard for the wool. It's the same thing with a lasagna. You didn't curdle the cheese. You didn't kill
Although I'd
the
like
cow.
to try that.
And so would I. Sure, why not? It's chemistry and science. It sounds fun.
And mozzarella is supposed to be the easiest cheese to make. But the whole point is lasagna can be made on a weekday and it doesn't take extra time. And while I say that I make my own sauce, it actually is the same amount of time as opening a jar. Because if you open a jar, you put it in a pot for 5 minutes, or I open crushed tomatoes and I put that and my seasonings in a pot for 5 minutes. It took me the same exact amount of time. It was just a lot cheaper and tastier.
Yeah, and you got to add your brown sugar to either one of those because you got to get that acid out of there. By the way,
go ahead.
Really quick aside. When I worked in a restaurant after I moved down here where I bought my house, the head chef, the owner, he liked to make his own pizza sauce, but he would scoop out the bubbles of acid that rose to the top of the sauce.
Wow.
By hand. Drove me insane. Like, if you've never been in a kitchen or worked around a kitchen and made your own tomato-based anything, doing that is equivalent to like how the lore says if you drop like a bag of marbles or sand, a leprechaun has to like count them. Like it's that equivalent. Like you're sitting by a pot and you're stirring with one hand and you have a ladle in the other and another pot sitting to the side and you're literally stirring, wait, scoop, 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 dip, stir, and you're just doing that for an hour or more based on how much soup or how much sauce you're making. And he was making this in a 15-gallon pot. So it took a while.
Yeah.
A long while.
I have a life.
Yeah. So I spray down my, I oil up my Pyrexes. I put the noodles in. I put the beef that I've cooked in, or whatever the protein is. Then I put the next layer of noodles in a different direction that I did the previous layer. And then I'm going to put, and I'm putting sauce in between all these layers. Then you got your ragout. You take your ragout, you put some basil in there, you put an egg, you mix it up, you spread the ragout, you put a little sauce, noodles. Then you got your cheese, and you just take a big block of cheese and you grate that cheese, you put that cheese on there, noodles, then sauce, then sprinkle that cheese on top, and then that Parmesan or Locatelli or Asiago, whatever you want to do. Boom, you're done. You cover it, you put it in the oven, you cook it, and then the last 10 minutes, you take off the foil cover or whatever you got there, and you let that top brown. Now, if you do the 2 Pyrexes and you use the oven ready noodles, you make 2 lasagnas. You take that other lasagna, you let it cool on the countertop, cover it, seal it up in plastic, throw it in the freezer. Next time you want to make a lasagna, you just take it out of the freezer, stick it in, let it come to like some kind of a room temperature so you don't get thermal shock, and then cook it up like you normally would. And you've got lasagna in even less time.
And if you're one of those people who likes to cook in batches so you can prepare your meals throughout the week, lasagna is like chili. It can extend for multiple days, just like spaghetti. A lot of pasta dishes do this.
And lasagna always tastes better the next day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the cool thing about next day lasagna, if you do like Nutty and you put it in the fridge, instead of putting it in the fridge, if you put it in the freezer,
that's what I said.
And you've cut and you cut it, you can actually deep fry that bad boy.
Oh, deep fry lasagna.
Okay, wait a sec.
Well, technically, you can deep fry everything. I mean, I've deep fried a G.I. Joe just to prove that you can deep fry.
Yeah, but we didn't need it.
First episode. But no, seriously, a lot of the things like lasagna, because it is a softer product, you have to freeze it first, and you dredge it and bread it just like you would any other fried product, and then you fry it, and you can make deep fried lasagna. It's freaking fantastic. You can do the same thing with macaroni and cheese.
Yes. Deep fried mac and cheese is so good.
You can deep fry Coke syrup.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes, absolutely it is. It's also diabetes. One of the so you can hear in Nutty's preparations how much attention she paid to the cheese, adding egg, adding oils, adding things to the cheese. I don't like cheese. Cheese to me is not a thing I'm ever going to eat on its own. Cheese is a flavor I add to other things. My lasagna, I concentrate on the protein. And one of the big things I've done with mine,
He still puts cheese in. Don't you worry.
right? So I put cheese in. I put cheese in as an augmented flavor. So, a really good mozzarella. When you can find a good mozzarella that you like the flavor, that's the one I'll add.
Yeah,
You
that
started-
nice soft
Right,
fresh
you
mozzarella.
started getting these little balls of mozzarella, like individually wrapped that are like fresh, wet balls of mozzarella. Those are absolutely delicious. They add a great flavor.
Yeah, those you don't grate, you just peel.
Right.
Dude,
And
Make great toppings for pizza, by the way.
Oh, yes, they do.
same thing with Parmesan. A good fresh, so Parmesan flakes or whatever smells horrid.
Yes.
Smells like week old underwear. It is disgusting. But a fresh Parmesan adds a delicious flavor.
The kind you have to grate. Now, the other thing is we use Parmesan as a broad term. Generally, when you're buying the hunks of cheese, they're not actually Parmesan. They're something like a Locatelli or an Asiago. What we mean is an Italian hard cheese, because specifically Parmesan is not so flavorful and it's very stinky, but you get something with a little more flavor.
I throw that just on the top layer. That's the one that browns it, adds a nice flavor.
Yeah.
Where I concentrate my efforts is in the protein. So in my lasagna, what I've stopped using beef. Beef has a good flavor. Pork has a better flavor. Pork is a wonderful, magical animal that has all kinds of flavors in it.
It is.
And one thing I like in my lasagna is instead of using ground beef, I use chorizo.
Okay.
Spicy.
You're making me
spicy
excited.
sausage.
You're filling me like tech. You're filling me with greatness.
But I'm also making Jen shake her head and make that
Jen, do you not like chorizo?
I will try anything once. And I've tried chorizo like 3 different times.
Mhm.
Same with eggplant. I've tried it like 3 or 4 different times. Those are 2 things that I cannot stand.
I've made it in eggs before.
Yeah.
She didn't like it. She just ate it to be
All right.
polite.
Oh,
So I have a question. Wait, Jen, I have a question. Do you like any kind of spicy Italian sausage? And don't use a euphemism
I'll
for
eat
that.
like capicola. I'll eat.
Okay.
It's not the spice so much. It was just me and the flavor didn't get along.
All right. So when we make it for Jen, we'll just use a more generic spicy Italian sausage.
So I use pork in my lasagna, and I like to use chorizo, a ground chorizo or a ground sausage meat, and in my tomato sauce, of course, brown sugar to counteract the acidity, but I'll add spice. I'll add peppers into my tomato sauce to sort of augment that flavor as well, because I'm not looking for that cheese flavor. I don't like the cheese flavor. I'll use it as an augment. I'll use it as a balance to the other flavors. I concentrate on the other ones. So I'll add like cayenne and ground cayenne peppers into my tomato sauce, and then I'll add chorizo into the meat. And the only difference
like different layers of spice.
Yeah. Yeah, you're creating different layers of spice.
Exactly, because that's the flavor I like. And then I use the cheese and the noodles to sort of neutralize and balance that flavor so that it's not just, nuclear waste that you're dripping down
Pure
your
red
gob.
pepper.
Right.
Hey, to be fair, again, we in the first meet our meat, we talked about this because we both like spice. And heat without substance is no bueno. No bueno.
Pure torture.
Yeah, you want a flavor to that heat. You don't want to just be spicy.
But everyone gets off the spice train at a different station, and that's completely okay. My mother, black pepper is too spicy for her. I add black pepper to my sauce, and she goes, "Oh, it's too spicy. I can't have it." And that's fine. That's fine for some people. Other people, you can have like pure. You could be like dripping like crushed habaneros into their eyes, and they're going, "Oh, that's actually kind of warm and wonderful. I like it. Could I get that distilled into a milkshake?"
Hello, Kilfoyle.
Yes. Some people are just immune to heat, and that's fine. Everyone gets off the flavor train at a different stop. Do what's right for you and who you're cooking for.
And Tech, you did forget one of the pieces of your pork lasagna that makes it extra special, because in with those layers of noodles, you're also layering in bacon.
Yeah, I did do that.
Yeah,
I did layer in bacon under every noodle layer.
Hey, first off, to quote Jen, as we were sitting down to have some Subway sandwiches, she goes, bacon makes everything better. And that is correct. I don't think anything I can think of that bacon does not make better. And
dude, have you had bacon in ice cream? It's really good.
I'm a late convert to the whole chocolate and bacon thing. I'm a late convert to that.
On that note, I just thought of something, because I know the flavor, but personally don't like it. But thinking, instead of bacon, a flavor that, what if you use crab?
What, in lasagna?
Yeah. What if
Oh,
you
absolutely.
What if you added crab?
So what I would do is, remember we were talking about using lobster meat?
Yeah.
I would make a lobster meat. That'd be my protein layer. And then in the ricotta, I would mix in crab meat.
And I would say you leave some of the acidity in your sauce to counteract, because crab is a general sweet is a sweet meat.
And,
absolutely.
And you're gonna want to like make that
it's a sweet
mixture.
meat, but it's not sweet meat. We're not eating pig face.
That's a difference. And while you're using ricotta instead of cream cheese, you would kind of design that ricotta layer to be a little bit like what you're going to use for like stuffed mushrooms with crab meat, kind of a recipe.
So I'm not huge on seafood and bright red sauces. My dad used to make this crab spaghetti when we were kids. It was just, I can't do it.
Yeah, you normally want to do a cream sauce.
Right. So Jason makes this pink sauce. And it's spaghetti sauce and Alfredo sauce.
Yeah, so rosé.
Rosé.
Yep.
It's amazing. That I can see in a seafood lasagna.
Dude, it's the brown sugar. Look,
you could also do a vodka sauce.
I know we've mentioned this 1,000 times, but it's the brown sugar. Folks, I don't want to sound stereotypical. I don't want to sound slightly racist.
But you're like, the brown is better.
But brown sugar can make so many things better. Like, it is a fantastic thing. And the worst part is brown sugar is just sugar with like maple syrup. Like, that's all it is.
Yeah. It just, you know what? So up here I'm an import, but we're pretty Canadian, because I'll tell you, I have to buy brown sugar every couple of weeks. I have a tub of sugar, like regular sugar, that I normally have to buy a new one of those like every 5 years. Yeah. We go through brown sugar like you wouldn't believe, but like regular sugar, almost never.
It's like, it was okay. Me and my
brother.
Most
of the time, if I have a recipe that calls for sugar, I'm like, I think I could use brown sugar.
Dude, me and my brother actually just had this conversation because my brother's still military, and he's doing his thing, and he's fantastic and wonderful and fun because he's my brother, and he's been
Go ahead, diss him.
Yeah. But no, they were having a debate. They were like, this is going to sound crazy, but they were like, what's better, pumpkin pie or sweet potato pie? And what's funny is that the line was actually racially divided. Black guys were like, sweet potato pie, like instantly, no hesitation, no, do not stop, do not pass go, do not collect a $200. Like, we're sweet potato. And then my brother was like, I mean, sweet potato is great, but what about that pumpkin? And then I was like, Matt, what about the goodie shop? And he goes, oh man, that sweet potato pie was so good. And then he's like, I don't know what to do. And like,
I am conflicted.
I'm torn.
His literal comment was, I'm torn. Like,
okay, so I'm going to chime in on this one. An average pumpkin pie is going to be better than an average sweet potato pie, but a good sweet potato pie is going to be better than a good pumpkin pie, because almost anybody can make a good pumpkin pie, but it's a bad sweet potato pie is just bad. Yes.
But a good pecan pie.
Yeah, that's not in the story.
Both of them.
No, we're in the squash family.
Spoiler alert. Again, We talked about this on the first episode. Where the North meets the South, it's pecan pie because it's all diabetes, folks.
Absolutely.
It's all diabetes.
It's brown sugar, cream, and nuts.
I thought about making pecan pie for Thanksgiving, or buying one, and I was like, I could just make one so much better.
You made before was fair.
Yeah, because that's the other thing. Like when you buy a pecan pie, most of the time it's just bleh. But a good homemade pecan pie.
You put bourbon in that or something? Yeah. You put bourbon in that bad boy.
That's a nice Southern pecan pie.
Jen, I love you.
So when are we?
We
haven't
mentioned
pie?
this before. We're mentioning it now. I love you.
Yeah. When are we getting our pie, Jen?
Yes.
But yeah, that's the thing. So to me, for when we're coming back to that squash family thing, a good sweet potato pie. It had, if it's made really well, that is going to blow out any pumpkin pie. But anyone can make a pumpkin pie. Pumpkin pie is so easy to make, and it's really hard to screw up. Whereas sweet potato pie, you can screw it up very easily.
See, I make my pumpkin pie with honey.
Oh, that sounds good too. And brown sugar,
regular sugar.
See, and
I know. I'm
starting
the whole time going, why haven't I not tried brown sugar?
Even.
I told you guys this again.
You're from Alaska.
That has to be it.
I keep going back to this episode. I tell you guys, I don't bake well. I can only make sweet potato pie. That's it.
So when are you making a sweet potato pie?
So I will make you sweet potato pie. And
it was supposed to make it the last time you were down here.
That is very true.
We were also supposed to barbecue last time we were down.
And we're supposed to go eat Indian. Like there's a whole lot of things we're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
So when are you guys coming up?
Make a trip up.
Yeah. We have sweet potatoes up here.
I'm going to go to England and I'm going to do all of these other trips,
right,
but I'm not going to come to the next country over because burgle.
England. Look, I'm going to Canada while he's in England.
That sounds good to me, Jen. We got a bed for you right here.
First off, the trip to England,
I'm gonna have to cut this out.
I called it my test trip because I'm a nerd and I'm an otaku. It's in my name.
No one cares.
I want to go to Japan. So
yeah, we've heard these excuses. It doesn't count. You got to come to Canada.
I'm gonna go to Canada first. That's fine. Like it's funny. You guys talk about
wait. I'm sorry. Did you just say you're going to Canada first?
Yeah, he did.
Yes.
All right, you heard it here, folks. He's coming to Canada first.
Half-Life 3 confirmed.
Half-Life 3 confirmed. Back to lasagna. All
Shane,
right.
you're still listening. I'm still coming to you, Shane. It's fine. I'm still coming, but I gotta stop in the Canada land first.
You just got finagled to Canada.
You know what though? Shane probably would agree with that because he is a huge Canada file, so it's all good.
I saw him wearing that the shirt. And he's always talking about Timmy's. Like
the Canadian is wearing the Gettysburg hoodie. Absolutely.
Well, you got that when you were in Gettysburg, and Shane got his A shirt when he was in Canada. And
so I need to ask a question while we're talking about. What we can all seem to agree on is what's important is a balance of flavors.
Yes.
In whatever you're making, whatever it is, it can't be too sweet, can't be too spicy, can't be too anywhere in the flavor spectrum. You need to balance your flavors together, and that one flavor will counteract or balance another one.
Yes.
So when we're talking protein,
when
we're talking about adding to the ground beef, we're going to add crab or lobster, or we're going to do all these things. I suddenly had the idea of another protein. What if we added nuts?
Oh,
what if I added walnuts to ground beef?
Well, that could work also, but there's some really good vegetarian lasagnas out there where it is a mixture of nuts as your protein.
All right.
And you can do it with a soy or you can do it straight up. But yeah. Say again?
Are we going finely chopped or are we going?
Yeah, generally you're going to want to chop them because you don't want somebody to like take a bite and then have this giant walnut sticking out.
You definitely want the peanut shells out of the lasagna. You don't want them to take the time to shell each individual nut.
But you can really think about like what nuts am I going to put in there? Because like pistachio is a nice soft nut and that would be really good for the chewing.
Pistachios and baklava is amazing.
Okay,
I love baklava. That is the dessert lasagna.
It's the dessert lasagna.
I've got two things to say here. One, we know a wonderful, wonderful lady, Gladys, who makes a baklava that's to die for. Second of all, I hate pistachios. I cannot stand pistachios.
Heathen.
Who ate that baklava?
I did because I'm a nice man.
And it wasn't bad, was it?
Heathen.
Heathen.
No.
So pistachios. Wait. Okay, my name is Nutty. All right. Let me just tell you here. Pistachios are a dream nut. Pistachios are amazing. People go all nuts over macadamia, and macadamia is good. But
Macadamia is the death nut. That's what that is.
The death nut?
Yeah, it's got the highest fat content of all the nuts.
Which is why it's very yummy.
Right, and killer.
But a pistachio, not only does it taste good, but it's super versatile. So like I can just eat pistachios on their own. They're delicious. I can encrust chicken in pistachios. You've had that tech.
Mm-hmm.
And
no, not bad.
It was really good.
Really good.
I can encrust my salmon in pistachios. I can make a nice layer. It was delicious. I can make a nice layer for my cheesecake with pistachios. I can put it in salads. I can put it with cheeses. I can eat pistachio. Oh, and let's not forget
pistachio muffins.
Pistachio muffins and pistachio ice cream.
Oh,
Friendlies, purely pistachio.
Has to be Ben & Jerry's pistachio ice cream.
But
that is like my favorite.
Ben & Jerry's is good. There is a dwindling franchise, which I think is almost completely dead, called Friendlies in the Northeast. And they have purely pistachio, and the nut, it's not pistachio walnut, it's pistachio with pistachios in it.
So, full disclosure, you used to work for them.
Yeah, because I love them ever since I was a kid. But yes, I did work for them. Jen was trying to say something. What were you going to say?
We have a ice cream brand here called Friendlies. I wonder if it's the same one.
Red background, white name, Friendlies, '*S. Yep, that's it.
I'm going to have to go look for this now.
So
yes,
pistachio, while good, is not my favorite. We can look at other things like walnut, almond,
yes,
pecan,
mm-hmm.
even peanut.
I wouldn't put pecan in a lasagna because I think that's kind of a hard nut. Although if it was chopped up and mixed in with almonds, maybe.
See, I'm a cashew guy all the way. I'm a super cashew guy. Like I love cashews.
I love cashews too.
Cashews are great.
Like
those are the half moon.
I could eat
right?
donuts all day.
Yeah, those are good. Yeah.
I have a question, and this is more for me. Is there a nut I don't like?
Durian.
That's not a nut.
That's a fruit.
That's disgusting.
But it's disgusting.
Now I know. Okay, so I know you guys. When I saw you guys doing the whole durian candy thing, and so Jen, would you like to regale them of your story of fresh durian fruit?
No, never again. You know, there's actually a store down here that sold them too. Where was that? That was going out towards Union, West Virginia.
So we have an Asian supermarket near us, and they have fresh durian fruit that you can buy. But what they've done is they put it right next to the door. So when you walk in, even though it's encased in, it's still, the flesh is in that hard casing, the spiky casing. There's this ambient odor that just sort of exudes from it. The whole supermarket just reeks of durian.
It's not bad. It's not to the point that you're going to be sick. It's just like, you know that there's durian there.
There's a seafood section with fresh scrimps, fresh crab, fresh lobster, fresh eel, cod, and
you got the fish swimming around, and they scoop it up and then they kill it for you.
Yeah, exactly. So, but then they've got the all of the other this huge tank about 20 feet long of fresh tilapia, all kinds of things swimming around, being fish, and then there's an iced display above them of all of the fish that they've killed that day that are fresh. 3 different types of crab. They got blue shell. They got Dungeness, snow, all kinds of things available there. You can't smell a darn thing in this entire thing other than rotting durian.
No, when you're in the seafood part, you smell the seafood, but as soon as you walk out of the seafood part, you're like, it's durian.
Nothing but
But
durian.
the really funny thing is that all the white people that are writing reviews on Google are like, I don't know. I don't like the story. This has a funny smell to it. Why does it smell like that?
why doesn't it have my pumpkin spice? Like I just don't understand. Like I went in here because everybody, all my hipster friends said it was like a great place. And
so when you go to a regular like hashtag white people grocery store, they've got those like roast chickens that you can buy, those instant roast chickens. And like ribs and a couple other things. Yeah. So this grocery store has got a side of pork every day, like an entire side.
And I can get like a barbecued duck and just take it with me.
Duck, rabbit.
See, this is why I keep saying I want an Asian restaurant.
So
duck, rabbit, chicken, pork, and everything in this huge display.
Pig's feet, pig ears, all the good stuff.
Balls, them ham hocks. Now, since we're talking about wonderful fresh markets, I have to give a shout out to Alaska for a place. Is it Red Apple or Green Apple? Red Apple? Red Apple.
What does Alaska know about green apples?
First off, let me tell you something. Red Apple is the best place because you go there, you can go from literally, you can get fresh durian fruit or you can get fresh ham hocks and everything in between. Oh, alligator. It's great. You can get alligator in that place.
Wait, but there's no alligators in Alaska.
So was that entire market designed to cater to the military community that comes from all over the place that they want that?
It was up there by the base.
Yeah, it was literally less than it was. I probably could from the base to Red Apple. It was maybe a 5-minute drive.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I'm really hoping that our market is going to get crawdads when they come in season. We'll see. Because I want to make crawdads again. I miss them. But getting back to lasagna, we were talking about adding seafood to our lasagna, and now I'm wondering, and I've never had it, but would that be similar to a sea pie?
Right. So there's an Acadian thing called a sea pie, where it's you're basically you take a large pot, a huge pot, and you make 6 layers. So 6 in French, sea pout, 6 pastries, 6 layers. And what you do is every layer is a different layer of meat separated by like a puff pastry or a pie shell type layer of dough. And then you just use the flavors. And what you do is you put your densest, thickest flavors at the bottom to your lightest flavors at the top, so they all sort of meld together. A good sea pie is made using a combination of seafood at the top, so your light flavors like your white fish and your shellfish at the top, to your game meat down at the bottom. So you've got bear and moose and deer and rabbit and crab and lobster and haddock or sole or cod.
Aside, if you guys can get your hands on elk,
we can get elk burgers right now.
It's down. There's a farm down the road.
Well, in addition to that, there's a chain in Canada that sells elk burgers. I mean, elk is not a problem. I can go to my white people supermarket and get elk steaks.
I think Jason forgets where y'all live.
Yeah, like spoiler alert, guys. Like as much as there was a cultural shock for me at 2:00 in the morning when I went up to Alaska for the first time when I was in the military, and I'm like, what is that horse? And they're like, that's not a horse. That's a moose. And I'm like, oh God. And from that point on, I started having weird things like bear and moose and elk and caribou. By the way, caribou is fantastic. We can get caribou.
All of those things are great, by the way.
They're all delicious.
And they're all variants on Bambi with weirder antlers. Like, I feel like they're just mutants of deer. Like,
if you think bear is a mutant deer, we need to talk, my friend.
So Shane,
bear is just a mutant human being. Seeing as in Alaska, they go to Walmart.
So Shane says in the chat, elk, it's fantastic. And yes, Shane made sure that he had some elk when he was visiting. So now I just want to point out a couple of things. So as we've been saying, you have your basic lasagna, and then you can add all different things, and you can really experiment and have fun. What are the don'ts of making lasagna? What are the things that you want to tell people to stay away from,
Don't hold anything sacred.
Mm.
Don't think that just because your grandmama made it this exact way, that that's the only way to make a lasagna. Don't think that because it's the way you read about it in a book or the way that they served it at this one restaurant, that that's the only way to do it. Lasagna is, like I said, it's just noodle cake. You can do anything you want. I don't like the flavor of green peppers. I don't like onion. I don't add those flavors in.
Well, you like the flavor of onion. You don't like the
I don't
texture.
like onion itself, so it's not something that I add. There's other flavors that I like more that I will add. So like I said, when I brought up the idea of adding walnuts into my ground beef, that's something I'll experiment with. I'll try it because I don't hold it sacred. It's food. Food is food is food is food is food. Just try what works for you. If you, hey, I wonder what would happen if I added, what if I didn't add salt? What if I added something salty like seafood and instead to carry the salt into the meat? And what if I threw in scrimps into my ground meat? Well, go ahead and try it. What's the worst thing? You try it, you try a couple bites, you go, I don't really like it. When you're reading a recipe book and they say add to taste, my big advice is taste it. Try it. Try your spaghetti sauce and see if you actually like it.
How many times when we're making sauce do we say, what does this need? Taste it.
Yeah.
Because if you're making it constantly and you're by yourself, sometimes you need that extra tongue to give it, a little oomph. And how many times? It's probably every time.
I have stopped measuring when I'm making sauces.
Yeah.
How many times do I, literally every time I'm cooking, I'm always like, hey, Jen, come here. Try this. Like, I don't think I've ever not been in the kitchen when she's home and not been like, hey, open your mouth. I'm putting this in here. Here you go. Take that.
That's what she said.
I'm thinking of a very bad song from the 90s right now. Don't hum it, but yeah.
By the way, you can't edit that. I didn't break the rules.
No, you didn't break the rule. Well, I could edit it if I want to because I still have all the control. But stop. I said, don't do it. Don't sing it.
I made Jen smile. 10 bonus points. I made Jen smile. It's on video now. It is forever.
It's not hard to make me smile.
The problem is we never saw it before. So I'm gonna say, well, don't hold anything sacred. Don't use sliced cheese. American cheese does not belong in lasagna.
First off, folks, if your cheese has a sheen to it, it's not real cheese.
Yeah. I mean,
if the instructions to unpacking the cheese were peel back the plastic.
Well, a lot of cheese is wrapped in plastic,
right,
but
you have to cut open. But if it's once you cut open the package, it's then peel away the individual slices.
And yes, Jen is right. Mozzarella will have a shine to it. I don't think that's a sheen. We'll do that nerdy. Well, actually,
the instructions.
Much mozzarella I get is a peel back package.
Yeah, but also that mozzarella doesn't have it's not like it has a slight tan to it. Like,
if the instructions to your mozzarella include pour out the water, that's good mozzarella.
That's good mozzarella, yeah. But that doesn't mean that you can't make it with a cheaper mozzarella. Like if you get a big bar and you're like, all right, this is the cheap mozzarella. I'm going to grate this stuff up. That's fine. Just no slices.
Even bags of the pre-shredded aren't bad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're just going to pay more for some other guy at a factory to shred it for you.
So full disclosure, at my poorest, I learned little tricks on making food really, really cheap. And one of them was making my own sauce because growing up, it took 3 days to make sauce. Once I learned that I could do it in 5 minutes, it was wonderful. The other thing was little tricks like just buying the big blocks of cheese and then grating it yourself. So I have no qualms about using inexpensive food. I have qualms about putting American cheese slices on lasagna. That's a problem. And don't put sugar in your ragout. You can put some sugar in your sauce if you're combating acidity. Don't make it a sweet sauce. Just do the combat of acidity kind of a thing because your sauce should not taste like candy. But don't put sugar in your regatta cheese. I just don't understand. So Jason, what are your don'ts?
Honestly, there's a ton of things you shouldn't do. There's a ton of things you probably should try, but I want to focus on the don't be afraid to make a mistake, and don't be afraid to make something that doesn't taste good.
Yeah.
Cooking is only made better through experimentation and failing and burning things or making something that just doesn't taste good. Like, if I could tell you guys about all the weird concoctions I've made in the kitchen, you would be like, and this is the guy who says I should eat his food? Like, no.
Because you're not going to experiment on the first time you feed somebody.
No, you're not. But I will gladly throw things in all sorts of pots. Like, it's fine. We'll make it. We'll see what happens. Because one of the things about food and cooking and comfort food in particular is the flavor profile, because the flavor profile of that food generally reminds you of something, whether it's your grandma or the house you grew up in or something. So that flavor profile can't be recipe'd out. I've never had comfort food recipe'd out to me. But you can definitely try your hand at something. And honestly, like the whole brown sugar thing in tomato sauce was something that I know a lot of chefs and people do, but in my home, that was not a thing. And I was like, why am I doing this? Like, why is this not tasting how I want it? And I tried some things and it didn't work. And finally I was like, what about this? And lo and behold, it worked.
Sugar.
But the catch is, how much do you add?
Yeah.
One of the brown sugar is a thing I equate with soy sauce, because soy sauce is a very salty byproduct and it adds great flavor and texture to things, but you can add too much.
Yeah.
And so you have to learn.
Vanilla is another example.
Yes. Yeah.
You can very easily add too much vanilla.
And the thing about the brown sugar in the sauce, I'm sorry to interrupt, the way that I was counteracting acidity before I started using that was adding more salt, which is fine for me who has low blood pressure. But if you're serving somebody who needs to watch their salt, that's not exactly a good thing. So it's one of those things, just a little bit of sugar means you're going to use a lot less salt.
Very much so. And folks, if you're thinking like, well, if I add more salt, it's my heart and blood pressure. But if I add more brown sugar, then diabetes. And I'm like, look, folks, you got to die something, okay?
Well, and the other thing is, if we get down to it, like a little bit of sugar is not going to kill you and cause diabetes. And that if you do have diabetes, there's so much that you can do with monitoring your food, but also, you still need some sugar, and you still need to monitor it more with like activity.
Yeah. And also, like, the best food is the worst thing for you. Like, I'm sorry.
Well, lasagna is good for you on a whole. You've got meat, you've got vegetables, you've got carbs. The entire food pyramid is right there.
Yeah. It's just the levels you put into it. But I'm just saying, like, fried sweet potato pies, you know what I'm saying? Like collard greens with them ham hocks slow cooked in them for a day. Like,
all right.
You know what I'm saying? None of those are good for you. But
none of those are good for you. Jen, what are your don'ts for lasagna?
Don't be afraid of spice.
Yes,
absolutely.
So
you're talking to Mama right now.
Mama, are you listening?
I'm sure she is.
Mama, can you hear
me?
My
thing, like, I grew up cooking, but I never wanted to add too much of something because I was always afraid that nobody would like it. It would go to waste.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually one of the things that I had to train myself out of, was it's okay to add a little bit too much,
Yeah.
Just don't be afraid of seasonings.
And I'll tell you, so Tech talks about how his mom, black pepper's too spicy, but my chili, she doesn't even think is spicy at all. And I put spice in my chili. But I also put like ranch powder, like the powder that you make ranch dressing with. I'll put that in with the spice. And so you've got spice, but you've got a complementary flavor going in there. And she's like, oh, that's not spicy at all. And I'm like, you have any idea how many red peppers I put in there? She doesn't realize it because it's not an assault.
Everything in balance.
Yeah, exactly. And so you can get there. I will say though that my grandmother used to, be one of those, oh, black pepper is salty. No, it turns out that was grandpa. And grandma was the one making the complaints. But as soon as grandpa died, grandma was like throwing spice and everything. And it was amazing.
It's funny. We talked about like the do's and don'ts. We talked about like the things that we kind of have carried over from other experimentation with food. One of the things I've noticed about all of us is that the way we grew up and the way we've learned things. I don't think there's been a like grandpa or a like Uncle Joe who's been like, try this out. It's always been like auntie, grandma.
Not to be that person, but yeah, I learned how to make sauce from my dad. He's the one that took 3 days to make sauce, and he's the one that would take 3 days to make chili.
Right.
My dad likes the slow process, let me tell you, and I kind of bucked that trend.
My grandma, in the later stages of her life, went blind and was still cooking in the kitchen by flavor alone. She couldn't see the ingredients. She couldn't see what was being added to the pot, and she would get the rest of the family to act as helpers. And it was chop this, cut this up for me. And she was adding, she didn't know what was on the cutting board. I say, here, chop up these celery for me, or here, you make the beef and add it to the sauce. She had no idea what was being added because she couldn't see it, and she was doing everything by taste.
That's some pretty good stuff.
I think we talked about this. I can't remember which podcast we did it on, but we talked about Mr. Keegley and watching him do his craft. And he's so good at sizing people up and seeing what they wear that he can look at you and just be like, this is
he got mad at me. He sorted me out. He's like, let's go back to this rack and see if I've got something that'll fit you. I go, I'm a 34. He looks at me and scowls and goes, I know what size y'all are. I go, I'm sorry, sir. He goes, and don't call me sir. Every time you do, I get another crow's foot.
But it's when you see that elderly member of your family, they have been cooking and making food for other people because, like Nutty said, lasagna is a comfort food, but so are so many other things. And a part of comfort food is the fact that they understand that when they make it, it's not necessarily for them. They're making it for everyone else. And
only thing better than cooking is cooking for other people.
Indeed, because
and I think
to make people happy.
Yeah, and I think also what you're getting at here is that we grew up that how do you make somebody happy? You make them food. You food is which maybe is a little disturbing. Maybe we shouldn't have this association of pleasure with food, but it is one of those things. It's like, okay, I went to New York for work and I flew in a day early, and my mom said, all right, you're coming for family dinner. What do you want? And I said, anything you make is going to be good. She goes, no, you're coming in. I want you to pick what you want, because what's the one way that she can tell me that she cares about me is by making me food. And I said, well, these are the 3 different meat options. All those are good, but I got to have you cheesy mashed potatoes because I can't make cheesy mashed potatoes with Fred, with Tech. So yeah, let's get some of that cheesy mashed potatoes.
It was hot pie for me. Like when I was in college and I would go home to visit, my aunt would make 2. She'd make one for me to eat
and one for you to take.
One for me to take. And I always love pot pie. Like it's a thing.
Oh, pot pie is amazing. And that's another one of those foods that is better the next day.
God, it's so
So I use grated Parmesan, just like Kraft Parmesan cheese in mine, to thicken it up and add the salt factor. Yeah.
It's pretty good. There you go. See, that's that adding that salt, but using other ingredients. So last thing I do want to say is that sometimes people get in their head these ideas that certain things are really tricky or hard to do. And apparently I was listening to the Fashionably 8 podcast, and they were talking about how their mom's like, "I'll just whip up a lasagna." She's like, "Just whip up a lasagna. It's not that easy. It's hard. It's not hard. Don't boil your own noodles. Figure out how to make it work for you." But also some people think like, I got to invest all this money in ingredients. And I'm telling you, anywhere from like $10 to $25 for an 8 to 16 portion lasagna. I did the math figuring out how much to spend. And it all depends on how much protein are you throwing in there, how many different kinds of cheeses are you throwing in there. This is relatively inexpensive. It's not something that, say, you're going to make just for one night kind of a thing, and it's going to spread over time. So if you think about the fact that, for that you're actually only spending a couple of dollars per portion.
Eat some portions, freeze the rest, and thaw them and cook them as you need them. Lasagna is one of those foods that you can prepare and then have food for a while. Definitely.
So it shouldn't be so intimidating. And you know what, the worst thing that happens is your lasagna is not great, it's just good.
And also for folks, like I've run into this a lot, is that people talk about how they're intimidated by cooking. Like, and I guess it's because I grew up in a household where everybody cooked. Like that was actually the thing. I didn't realize that people had such anxiety over cooking for other people. Like, it's just a thing I grew up with. It was just,
and in your household, you were cooking growing up. A lot of households, the cooking's all done without involvement. And so like the parental unit who's doing the cooking makes it, then calls everybody down, and food's just there and they're not part of the process. Whereas I think many of us came from families where we were doing the cooking. And I will tell you that, like, I learned to cook from my mom, from my dad, from my brothers, and from my sisters. I learned a little bit from everybody because growing up, different siblings had different things. Like, I learned certain things from a sister, and I learned certain things from a brother because he was the one that did that dish. And, so that was shown to have value to me growing up. Whereas not every household was like ours. Food appeared.
I remember growing up thinking that certain things tasted a certain way because every time I ate a thing that had tomatoes, it tasted the certain way, or everything that tasted like cheese tasted like this.
Mm-hmm.
So my biggest tip to everybody, if you're intimidated by cooking, and it's a scary thing, it's chemistry for hungry people. I mean, it's a daunting task, sure. Well, what do you like? Well, I like this. Well, sure. So try just tomatoes. And then taste them. So warm them up and you cook them up in the pan and then taste it. Taste your own cooking. Taste your raw ingredients. Hey, what does basil taste like before I add it? What does oregano taste like? What does salt? What does pepper taste like? Okay. Wow, I don't like that flavor. I'm not going to add ginger to my food. I don't like what ginger tastes like. Oh, well, wow, this garlic smells amazing. I'm going to add a little bit of garlic. So add a little bit, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more and then taste your food. Taste your bloody food, people, until you find what you like. And don't think that just because Gordon Ramsay or just because, I don't know, some other of those celebrity chef says that in order for your eggs to be absolutely perfect, they have to be running down the side of your plate. And then if your eggs aren't wet and runny, they're not perfect eggs. If you don't like your eggs that way, don't cook your eggs that way. Don't listen to other people. Find a flavor that you like and cook to that flavor.
Dude, food is one of the most personal and intimate things I've ever seen. Absolutely. Outside of like literally going up and saying, "Hi, how are you doing? I'm so-and-so," and meeting a person. Like, food can be made or broken by the person making it because of what they put into it. And, it's ironic. We kind of make the joke that love is the secret ingredient. But it's true. Like
It is.
the care and the emotion and the purpose that you put into what you're making can make all the difference, because it could be bad. But when a person eats that thing and they know you took and tried your best, it still takes that into account and it can make it better. Like it, again, food has always been a part of my life. And one of the things, I'm pretty sure every significant female in my life growing up, my great aunt Dot, my aunt Nancy, my mom, my aunt Louise, my aunt Martha, all of them has a significant dish that they made or something that they cooked so well that I remember them for. Like my mom,
That's their signature dish.
Yeah, my mom made baked pork chops and that made their own gravy. I even talked about that to you when you made yours this last time, Jen. And my aunt Nancy, is her rolls. I still cannot make her rolls, and it drives me mad. But my aunt Dot,
you were supposed to get us some rolls.
Yeah, we again, check out the code switching episode. We talked about that. But no, like my aunt Dot, she was kind of that general all-purpose cook. Like she made sweet potato pie. Like for 20 plus years growing up, my aunt Dot woke up every morning at 6 o'clock in the morning and she made fried sweet potato pies, fried apple pies. She made homemade lemon meringue pies. She made sweet potato.
All right, so you're just making me hungry here. And I'm going to interject that to those listening to us, if you grew up in a household that did not have food as part of a value activity that you participated in, don't worry, you can get there. You can teach yourself. You can learn these things. And we are not sponsored. We are 100% not sponsored by anyone.
This episode of the Nutty Bites is brought to you by the Goodie Shop.
The Goodie, yeah. I wish. But I will say that those meal prep websites are really great ways to get yourself cooking and experimenting with different things. So if you can afford it and it's something that you can work into your budget, you can arrange to have, I think it's like 1 or 2 meals a week sent to you, and they send you the ingredients, and then you make the meal and you make that part of an activity with the person that you live with, you know, whether it be your roommate, your friend, you know, your children, your spouse, whomever. And then you make that part of an activity. You are going to learn, oh, I liked this, I didn't like this. And then once you've got a couple basics, you can then start making your own things and coming up with new recipes. If you can't afford that, go to YouTube, find things that look interesting, and you will find recipes, and you can follow along and you can buy it cheaper. Just try. You can do this.
And there's nothing wrong with looking at somebody else's recipes and going, oh, he added ricotta, but I don't like ricotta. I like mozzarella better.
Yeah.
What if I change it a little bit? Or wow, they used bear in this recipe. I don't like bear, or I don't have access to bear. But bear is close to pork. What if I tried it with pork instead?
Yeah. And just experiment and try. And you know what? You will learn these things. So nothing can be too intimidating. So before we sign off, I just want to do a couple quick thank yous and a bit of housekeeping here. So Shane was joining us all throughout this, but he had to leave. He's got some street pastor things. But he did tell me at the top of the show that tomorrow he is going to be participating to be part of a world record attempt for the world's largest human poppy. So we are recording this on the eve of Remembrance Day or Veterans Day, depending on where your location is. So he's going to be trying to create the world's largest poppy out of people. And Tech is just grinning back there.
Thanks, Shane.
Thank you, Shane, for doing that. And
lest we forget,
if this comes out before, which I doubt it, remember, you know, and it'll probably be coming out after, but we do thank all of our veterans, especially considering we've got 2 of them right here on this podcast. So thank you. But also I want to thank our patrons who are making it possible to get 2 episodes a month. First off, Big Daddy's sitting right here. Another thank you to Jason. And our other Big Daddy is Jax. Thank you, Aaron, for supporting us, for helping us with QC and being.
Did he tie me?
No, you're the top big daddy, but he's another big daddy because he is over $10 a month. So boom.
Hey, you come for the king, you better not miss, son.
Hey, I encourage anyone to try to outbid Jason.
Next month at SummerSlam, tables, ladders, and chairs, big daddy match.
Exactly.
There's two kids just rolling around in oil, just going,
And we also want to thank Susanna and Andy at our next tier of $5 a month. And we want to thank Dr. Beth for her $2 a month. And we want to thank Aurora Lee. We want to thank Susan. We want to thank Melissa, the bathtub mermaid. We want to thank Kinsey, Ian, Harold, Patrick Scafito. We want to thank our first our very first patron and all-around fan, Shane.
Thanks, Shane.
For his $2 a month. And we also want to thank Zachman, Greg, the Radical Geek. We want to thank Stephen Pritchard. We want to thank Rich the TT. We want to thank Mike. We want to thank Ken, Lynette of the Bycast, and we want to thank often Nick, but also Dagny, who donates not through Patreon, but through PayPal as often as PayPal allows them to do so. And then lastly, we did get a review on iTunes, which I think it's been years since our last review. And I believe I pronounced this as Muncie. Is that correct?
Yeah. So 5 stars from Muncie says, the show is charming as hell. You really ought to listen to it. Thanks, Muncie.
And Muncie's in Canada. So yay, Canadians. Thank you. And yes, we know you submitted that in July. I just haven't had a moment to share it. And if you wanted to leave feedback, go right ahead and I will try to see it. If you're in other countries, it might be tricky. So please let me know. But, as everybody says, oh, rate and review my podcast. It'll help other people see me. No, it doesn't. It doesn't do anything. The analytics have proved rating and reviewing does nothing but stroke ego, but that's okay. And you can get in touch with us by listening to the links on the outro. So thank you. And Jen, Jason, where can people find you on the internet?
You said no. So not gonna do it. Not gonna
Jason, it's you. She did it last time.
Yeah, technically I did.
I love that smile. She's like, wait a minute, I did.
So, on that note, this has been a crossover Talk Nerdy to Me podcast, Nutty Bites episode with Meet Our Meat. And we have been your hosts,
Jen
and Jason. And you can always find us on our website at talknerdytomepodcast.com. You can find us on our Facebook at facebook.com/nerdytome. And of course, you can find us on the Twitter at nerdy2mepodcast. And that is nerdy with the number 2. There you go. See, and you guys get to physically see me do that. It's amazing. Thank you, Jen.
You know what? The whole podcast, I'm like, does he remember he's on video?
Oh, I make all kinds of faces. Like, I'll make them and I'm like, did they see that? Yeah, they fucking saw that. Oh, no. I know.
That's okay. That's edited out. I'm stopping right after the last pen pitch. All right. Thank you all. Bye.
The other thing is that the video cropped the way it is we can't see all the nut scratching that's going on.
Yeah, that's probably a good thing.
That was probably a good thing.
All the things I've dropped, like the lighter that I didn't know was there.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to hit stop broadcast. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll talk later.